Hey Dodger fans, on this edition of the 3 Up 3 Down podcast, we're going to talk about why Colorado could be a trap series, what to do with Gavin Lux, and the many, many reasons to trust Andrew Friedman at the trade deadline. Welcome back to the 3 Up 3 Down podcast. My name is Eric Elo, your host for this 5-minute podcast. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram. That is at EEULAU. This is a Dodger Nation production. We ask if you haven't already to please subscribe or review to the YouTube page. We'd really appreciate it. Let's get into it. I'm recording this Thursday night. Still no Dodger baseball, but tomorrow they'll kick off the second half of their season in Colorado against the Rockies. And for me, it feels like the classic case of your favorite college football team, your favorite NFL team, looking ahead in a couple of weeks. You have a hated rival who's in first, you're in second, you need that game, and you're just thinking, we'll just roll over this inferior interdivision opponent who just hasn't looked great this year. And that's the Rockies and the Giants. And I think that the Rockies are going to give the Dodgers a stronger series than a lot of people think for 3 reasons. 1, the Rockies are great against left-handed pitching. Number 2, they win at home. Number 3, they run the bases really well. The stolen bases have been a problem for the Dodgers. The Rockies are one of 5 teams in the MLB with at least 30 home wins. They have more home wins than the Padres. Offensively, they're first in batting average at 280. They have the most runs scored at 269. They have an impressive OPS of 811. That's 3rd in the league at home. Stolen bases, 4th. They have 30 stolen bases, good for 4th in the league. Now, they're even better at home against left-handed pitching than right-handed pitching. Against lefties, 861 OPS. That's pretty damn good. 788 against righties, not too shabby either. The Dodgers are going to have to start Julio Urias and David Price in this series, which is a big deal. So I don't think we're just going to waltz into Colorado. Hey, you mind if we sweep you? Is that good for you? I don't think that's going to happen. I'm not saying they're going to lose this series. I'm not saying it's a must-win series. So please don't tear me up in the comments for that. I'm just saying there's more to meets the eye than in this series, and it seems like a classic trap game scenario where you're going to get caught looking ahead to that 4-game set in LA against the Giants, and you take your eye off the ball, no pun intended, and you get a little bit surprised by a team that is going to just matches up well with you right now at this point in time. They're at home. They run the base pass well. They're good against lefties. All 3 of those variables could play in the Rockies' favor. I don't bet on baseball. I'm not going to bet against my team. I don't know why I just indirectly quoted Pete Rose there, but if I had some shekels on DraftKings or whatever the hell you kids use, I'd sprinkle some in on the Rockies to at least cover a game or 2. But I'm still calling the Dodgers to win this series. I just think it's going to be more difficult than a lot of people think. The Dodgers have a big roster question coming their way, and it's coming fast. What do they do with Gavin Lux when Corey Seager comes back from injury, which could be as soon as the Giants series next week if all goes well in Arizona for Seager over the weekend? And folks, unless Gavin Lux learns how to play catcher and handles Clayton Kershaw like Austin Barnes does behind the dish, there's a legitimate path for him to go back down to AAA. And maybe it's not the worst thing in the world, but if you look at the position the Dodgers are in right now, short 2 starters, in my mind, it doesn't make sense to get rid of an arm just to keep Lux on the roster. So that gets us to the pool of position everyday players. And you know all the mainstays, you know all their names. I'm not going to recite to you the superstars of this team. We all know them. So that brings us to kind of the fringe guys, the platoon guys, which is Albert Pujols, not getting rid of Tio Albert. AJ Pollock, way too expensive. He can actually hit, and more importantly, he can hit lefties, just like Albert Pujols, which the Dodgers sorely need. We all know the stats behind that one. That brings us to Matt Beatty, who I think should get even more playing time, but it's just kind of impossible the way Roberts handles him. He can actually conduct a professional at-bat in a pitch-hitting role. I like Matt Beatty a lot more than I like Gavin Lux right now. That brings us to Zach Mckinstry. Zach Mckinstry like a whole hell of a lot than Lux right now because the dude can actually hit. I know the sample size, if you look at the plate appearance, is a lot smaller, but Zach Mckinstry has a better OPS against left-handed pitching. He has a better OPS against right-handed pitching. He has a better weighted runs created plus than Gavin Lux. I know the strikeout rate is higher and the walk rate is a little lower. I think Mckinstry will figure that out as he gets more time in the bigs. That leaves Lux as the odd man out. And maybe he needs some time to tinker and he needs a little more heavy-handed coaching down in AAA. But I think the way things are right now, it leaves Lux as the odd man out. As the trade deadline draws closer and Dodger fans start losing our collective minds about what we think the team should do, who they should trade for, and so on, just remember this. In Friedman, we trust. The guy is the best team president in baseball, in my opinion, and he seems to always make a trade deadline deal or 2 or 3 that positively impacts the team. Sometimes they're big and sexy like Manny Machado and Yu Darvish, and sometimes they're small and still very beneficial. I'm talking about Rich Hill, talking about Tony Watson, talking about Tony Cingrani, talking about Dylan Floro, talking about Josh Fields, Casey Sadler. I mean, hell, even Jed Jerko had a good game in there too. The guy's going to make an acquisition. He's going to fix this roster, and he's always is going to make a deadline deal to make the Dodgers even better. That's it. That's all I got time for. Thank you for watching. Make sure to download the new app, by the way, Dodgers Nation app. It is just outstanding news, video, all that fun stuff. I'm out of time. App Store, Google Play, Dodgers Nation. Thank you for watching.